What's up, everybody? It's Adam, aka Cali Coaster, aka PunkVid619, aka PunkVid Music on the YouTubes. Professionally, I go by DJ Costa. That's DJ Koasta. I am on Instagram finally as a DJ profile, and you can also visit me on my website www.djcosta.com. I'm here to talk to you about something that I wish I had known a few years ago and realized and been informed of when I first started out. I got my first DJ controller. It was the Hercules N-Pulse 200 a few years ago, like I said, and I was hesitant to do anything with it because it seemed kind of overwhelming. Like, what are these platters? What are these knobs? What exactly do I do with this thing? So I finally went online, watched a few tutorial videos. I come from a music production background. I produce on two different DAWs. I use FL Studio mainly for dance and hip hop beats, and I also use Presonus Studio One when I want to produce more heavy, like rock, punk, metal type tracks. And coming from that background, going to a DJ platform was quite a challenging experience, to say the least. When I first started, like I said, I was very overwhelmed just by the controller itself. Even though it was a very, very basic controller, it was a beginner learning controller, I was confused as to what to do with it. So after watching the videos, I started getting into it a little bit more, and over time I eventually upgraded to the N-Pulse 500, which had a few more bells and whistles, but it was essentially the same thing. And then now I perform on the Rain 4 controller, which is what you see here under my hands, and this is a huge step up from what I was used to performing with. But even though they look different, they do different things, they're essentially the same piece of equipment, just expanded. And let me break it down for you in terms of music production background and sound engineering background. Basically, as a DJ, all you're doing is manipulating the music. That's it. Bottom line, that's what you're doing. You're manipulating the music, making sure that it continues flowing, that you keep the night going or the day going or whatever you're doing, keeping the flow steady but energizing. And that's exactly what a controller was created for. Now, I talked about how even though they're essentially the same piece of equipment between all three controllers, each one does have slightly different bells and whistles. Obviously, the larger the controller, the more options you're going to have, but you're still doing the same thing. So if you're a little confused like I was when I first started, hopefully this helps simplify it for you and makes it a little easier to understand. Now, by itself, the controller doesn't do anything. You do have to have software connected. For most controllers out there, the preferred software is Serato. That is actually the standard for most DJs. Some also offer the option to connect to the Rekordbox software, but I use Serato. It's very easy to use. And once I connected my first controller to Serato and saw how they communicated with each other, it made it a lot less frightening to look at the controller again. Like I said, I watched a few videos, but I'm a hands-on learner, so a lot of my learning I did just by experimenting with different things, and it's okay to do that. In fact, that's how DJs get better. You can watch all the videos that you can find, but until you get hands-on and start actually feeling and seeing what each knob, jog wheel, performance pad, slider, fader, what the crossfader does, once you start realizing how those work with the music, it becomes a lot more fun and a lot less stressful. So let me just break it down for you in terms that I wish I had understood when I first started. Looking at the DJ controller, I'm going to break it down into 4 different sections using my Rane 4. Now this can work for pretty much any controller. They're all set up pretty much the same, like I said, just expanded. So if you have the Impulse 200 or FLX4 or a beginner controller, intermediate controller, it doesn't matter. The theory is still the same. So on the left side, you've got deck 1. On the right side, you've got your deck 2. These are your jog wheels. Basically, these are the digital replacement for the old school vinyl. So these move clockwise and counterclockwise, just like the turntable would if you were playing vinyl. The knob next to it, this slides up and down. For those of you who are into music production, you'll know that you can adjust the tempo of whatever track you're making by sliding the tempo slider in your DAW. That's essentially what this does. It allows you to slow down or speed up the track depending on which way you move it. And that works the same on deck 1 and deck 2. Now, like I said, I use Serato. If you have Serato, great. If you don't, I suggest, even if you don't want to pay for anything right now, most controllers come with a Serato DJ Lite, which is the free version of Serato, and that's what I started using before I started getting serious with it. I used the free version. There are limitations with it, but it essentially works the same as the DJ Pro. You can do a lot of things with it. There are some features. I don't believe stems separation is available, and basically what stem separation does is it takes an individual track, and depending on which button you choose to eliminate, it'll eliminate the drums, the vocals, the melody, and the bass. So you can separate 4 different parts of the song to isolate them or to remove them. And that is the part that I was having the most fun with, creating a cappella versions of tracks and also creating instrumental versions of tracks by removing the vocals while I played it. But basically what you're doing as a DJ, you're just manipulating the music. And that's what you do on the controller. Basically, the middle section, you can't see all the knobs up here, but all the white knobs are your volume controls for each deck. So here you have the highs. You can increase or decrease the highs. You have your mids. You can increase or decrease them. And then here you have your lows, which is where the bass mainly sits. So if you want to bring more bass into the track that you're playing, simply adjust that knob. But do it very, very carefully. Don't slam it all the way up. Just slowly adjust it to see how it feels and stop once you get the right feel that you're going for. And then in the middle right here, these are your effects. So essentially, looking back to your DAW, these are the same as you would do in your effects management tabs on your DAW when you're adding effects to an individual track, but you're essentially doing this to the entire song. So you can't isolate certain instruments, but you can apply the same type of effects to the whole track. And then down here, I don't know about other controllers because the Rane 4 was specifically built with Serato stem separation in mind. So they added these controls here, which allow you to stem split and adjust the volume for each stem that you're splitting between the instrumental and the vocals, which is kind of fun. I played around with that a little bit. I'm still fairly new to this controller, and there's a lot of tutorials out there about how the Rane 4 works. So I'm not going to go too deep into this specific controller, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what exactly your controller is for. And essentially you are producing music in a live setting, but instead of isolating the different instruments and manipulating the instruments within the track, you're doing that with the entire song. So with The effects, like I said, it affects everything that's active in that track. Now, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because I did say you can separate out certain parts of the song. You can isolate the vocals, you can isolate the bass, you can isolate the melody, and you can isolate the drums. Same concept, you can also remove one of them and keep the other three, which helps a lot when you're trying to mix in certain songs. So let's say you have a track playing here on deck 1, and then you want to bring in the song on deck 2, but it doesn't quite mesh with the track that's playing on deck 1. So you can manipulate the vocals, bass, drum, or melody on deck 2 with the second track that you want to bring in by removing or isolating any one of those, or adding an effect like an echo effect to echo it in, or an echo effect to echo the track on deck 1 out. And I guess sorry, I'm doing this all unscripted. I just wanted to get this information out there. So basically, as a DJ, you are a live sound engineer and live music producer. So the stuff that you do in your DAW, you're now doing it live, hopefully in front of people, because it's more fun that way. But even if you're just learning, play around with your controller a little bit in your DJ software. See what sounds, what transitions, what mixes you can come up with. I'm not a trick DJ. I don't do like a whole bunch of scratch routines or things like that. I did do my first wedding, and I'm going to make a video about that. But for now, I think that's all I wanted to share, is that, you know, the controller doesn't have to be as intimidating as it may feel. Just break it down into small little parts, play with, you know, each of the different knobs, learn the knobs, learn what they do, add a second song, play with that while this first song's going, see what kind of transitions you can make. I've got some remixes that I'm going to be putting out on my Mixcloud soon that I used while I was doing a live stream. I did it all without rehearsing, and it only took 1 or 2 takes to get it right, but I had a lot of fun doing that, and that's what it's all about. It's about being fun for you and for your crowd. Remember, as a DJ, you are responsible for the energy and the vibe using this. Until next time, I'm DJ Costa. Hope this video helped. Let me know down in the comments below if any of it was useful, if you have anything to add. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it. I'll see you all next time. Deuces.